Justice for Our Lives project is a series of portraits of people who have been killed by police. I feel that it's my responsibility as an artist to make these names popular so that people never forget their stories. I started this project in 2014 after the annual visual for Oscar Grant at the Fruitvale BART station. I came home heavily inspired to produce a portrait of his and put it out on social media. Ultimately, I had a project that now has lasted for 3 years. I'm a self-taught artist and originally from Los Angeles. I remember when I moved out here, there was a lot of protests that were happening out here in Oakland. That's something that I didn't really see in LA at the time. It heavily influenced me to do artwork related to the communities and social justice. Whenever possible, I try to contact the families of the victims prior to working on a design. It's a very emotional circumstance for them to be going through. There's reasoning behind the simplicity of my images and the black and white palette. I offer these images as templates. When people around the country took note of that, I then started seeing them in New York and San Antonio, Arizona, Chicago. I also saw people use them in Paris, France. Part of this project is me going out to the streets and doing wheat pasting, bringing out the art out to the streets, right? Hello everybody, thank you very much for joining my presentation / wheat pasting demo. You're invited to choose one of these posters and then do your own wheat pasting onto these boards that you can then take home. Choose someone whose case you're aware of, or maybe someone that you're not aware of. Research it so you can learn more about that case. This is not necessarily a project that I enjoy. The amount of portraits that I've created so far is just a mere fraction of the total number of people that are killed by police every year. It's nothing compared to how much of a crisis this issue really is. I consider my project to just be a contribution to end police killing unarmed people and getting away with it.
Yo, how's it going, Oree?
Going good, going good.
Man, congratulations on being named community leader for the first ever BRIDGEGOOD Resilience event.
I really appreciate the acknowledgement.
We met at Laney College. What was it about BRIDGEGOOD that made you even want to be involved?
The Inspire Oakland project was an option that we had for it to be our final assignment. But I remember you visiting, and I remember you telling us about BRIDGEGOOD. What I really liked about it was the fact that it was a bridge between communities of color, lower income folks, and the tech world. I wanted to open myself up to see what was available on that side. I was glad that I participated and that I also got a bench ad up. So I thought that was really cool.
So you're being honored on day one of Resilience, which is all about student voices through design for social good. When you think about design for social good, what does that mean to you?
Design in general is used to facilitate a process that can make something easier to understand, can allow a user or a participant to be able to engage in something. The use of design for social good, the way in which I've been approaching it has been through a culture, and of course art being a big part of culture. The way that I organize my projects and the way that I apply it to a social movement or to the community is a way that I use my design for social good.
You grew up in Los Angeles, right? And I read that you were really heavily influenced by graffiti.
I grew up in the hood, you know, in the area that I grew up in, especially the 90s, was an era in Los Angeles where gang activity was a lot more pronounced. I wasn't the type to get involved in gang activity, but I definitely wanted to get involved in the art aspect of that, because my friends were doing that as well. And some of them were involved in gangs, some of them were doing it as just graffiti artists, as, you know, part of the culture, you know, of hip hop. Because also I was a fan of hip hop as well. When you grow up in the hood, you usually are assigned a nickname by your friends, you know, and for me, it ended up being Oree. The Spanish word for ears is orejas, and I had bigger ears when I was a kid. So long story short, orejas evolved into Oree.
Gotcha.
And then I added the last name of Original up until I moved out to the Bay, where I decided that I was going to approach my career as more of a visual artist. So I expanded into painting, into graphic design, etc.
Yeah, what about the Bay is different than LA?
That's what really drew me in when I first visited the Bay, was just seeing how people were more friendly, how people valued art more for the people. So that really drew me in. Back at that time where I was doing graffiti, I didn't really have much of a community, or like an art community that I could appeal to, that would allow me to grow, create space for myself, like actual physical space that I could produce art in and be able to network and be able to exhibit. And then also just the culture of activism out here with art.
The collaboration in the Bay is so radical. About the Inspire Oakland project, we've been doing it since 2009, Oree, and the first time that we got complaints via Twitter, tweets from people, was when we had Jack De Jesus, who's also an activist and rapper and dope designer, did the Black Lives Matter billboard with the women in lockboxes. And that was the first time that we got hate from social media. That was in 2015, and this juxtaposes with your journey, because in 2014 is when you started Justice for Our Lives. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so that was a response to the killing of Trayvon Martin, but it was also inspired heavily by Black Lives Matter. But I remember at that time, towards the end of 2013, I mostly just knew it as a hashtag on Twitter. I picked up from the conversations that I would see on there. What encouraged me to then finally create artwork that related to Black Lives Matter was when I came home from the annual vigil for Oscar Grant that happens at the Fruitvale BART station every year. And I was just inspired to honor his name and create a quick portrait of his in black and white, and then just put it out in the world. I got a good response, so it encouraged me to just keep on going. And then before I knew it, I had a portrait series that I was working with. I started seeing people in New York that was using my portrait, so they were picking it off of my Facebook account.
At that time, it was just right-click save to desktop.
Exactly, yeah.
Wow.
Right-click save on desktop.
Yeah.
Little by little, it developed into like this serious project that I was pushing forward, and it's been 7 years now.
Man. Before my brother died, who just passed away last month, we sat down. I never knew how much Black Lives Matter to him. He had tears in his eyes, and he's like, Shaun, think about Black Lives Matter. Think about that phrase. We have to convince people that Black Lives Matter. That should not have to even happen. And I had never known that my brother was so passionate about the movement. And that's why he was such a big fan of yours.
I do want to say that I'm sorry about hearing about your brother, and it was a pleasure to have met him on a couple of occasions. So I'm really sorry about that. I wouldn't say that I made a movement out of it, but I'm definitely playing a small role by offering my art as a visual aid for people to be able to express themselves around these issues. Understanding that there's a lot of people that play their own role, you being on the graphic design tech end, and others, you have the organizers, you have the teachers, so you have a lot of people who are involved sustaining this movement for sure.
What does Justice for Our Lives mean to you? And what do you hope it means for others?
A reflection of the state of the world that we live in right now, where Black lives are devalued. I wanted to be able to offer this piece of work to the world so that we could have a better understanding of where we're at due to where we've been, so that we could do the work to affect where it is that we're going, but also see it as a tool that will allow for us to be able to shape what our outcome ends up being. There's a lot of work ahead of us. I do believe that art has a major role, and design, in how we come up with solutions for that.
And I also think the next generation as well, it was really smart to have it open source, meaning they can go to your website, download art, print it out, share it on social media. I love the juxtaposition of print and digital, but I do think it's that next generation, Oree, that we're both inspiring. So how do people get involved, get their students involved, get their friends and colleagues involved? justiceforourlives.com, and I have the portraits available in 2 sizes, which is 8.5 by 11, so that anyone can participate, but then also the official size, which is 18 by 24, which is like a standard poster size. Or they could just email me at oreeoriginal@gmail.com. There's no A's in my name, just O's, Oree Original, NOL. And you still got the BRIDGEGOOD portfolio, bridgegood.com/Oree.
Exactly. BRIDGEGOOD, yeah, exactly. So you could also go there as well. I actually need to update that. So thanks for reminding me. I'm gonna have to go back on there and update it for sure.
And one last message for the young people watching this right now that may not know what to do with their creative career. And they're thinking about, do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? But they want to stay in art.
I would definitely be honest and say that it's not an easy path to pursue. There's going to be hurdles on your journey, and I would say that they should not be discouraged when coming across them. It's definitely an uphill battle. That means that when you get those wins, that they mean a lot more. They definitely feel a lot better. So I would say to not have any fear in your pursuit, and be open to ask questions, be open to connecting with other people, because as an individual, we don't have all the answers. I actually thought that I did when I first started, until I started to open myself up to other people. And then I realized, like, whoa, like I could definitely get much further in my career if I open up to people, as opposed to thinking that I could do it all on my own.
Oree Original, appreciate you. Congratulations. The Resilience 2020 community leader. Thank you. Peace and love.
Thank you. I appreciate it.